Today on Co-op for Two, it's my holiday gift guide to tabletop mystery games. 70 games in 24 categories. Is that too much for just one video? Let's find out. Let's set some ground rules for this video. I will focus on currently available, relatively affordable games. Most of the games I discuss here would fit in a bunch of different categories, but I'm going to try to pick one for each game. I'll just give you the briefest explanation of each game. You'll have to do your own research to learn more about them. However, you can watch playthroughs and spoiler-free reviews of most of the games I discuss here on the channel. And probably you need to know what I am classifying as a mystery game for the purposes of this video. Most of these games can only be played once. There is a narrative story that runs through most of them with a mystery at their core. Sometimes they're solved with pure detective work. Sometimes the focus is on solving puzzles. Sometimes there's a little bit more of a choose-your-own-adventure feel, and then a couple of the games that will be included in this video are sort of break that mold and are more social deduction, but have a mystery vibe. The first category we're going to discuss is probably my favorite category, which I'll call mystery games for the reader. Now, most of the games I'm going to be talking about have a significant amount of reading, but these are really games that are like reading novels. And the grandfather of all of these is Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. There are a bunch of boxes for them, but the box I always recommend for people to get started with is this one here, this green box called the Baker Street Irregulars. It's one of my favorite experiences of all time. There are 10 or more cases in here. It'll take you a long time to play through them. Not everyone will love this game, but for those who do love it, it's sort of a life-changing experience. If you have young children, there's The Animals of Baker Street, which is a more card-based game, but still has the feel of reading a children's book and solving mysteries. This would only be for young children, though. And then a sort of elevation of this genre is seen in the Postmortem LA series by the Mysterious Package Company. These games have some other elements, but really a chief component here is huge amounts of reading, like a dime store film noir novel in each box. You could pick up any of the Postmortem LA boxes and have an amazing time. Another major genre of mystery game is the cold case game, sometimes called a case file or crime dossier game. These are games where you've just got a bunch of randomly organized documents, bank records, interviews, etc., and you try to read them, go through them, and just use pure deduction to figure out how to solve a mystery. And I've broken this up into two groups. This is sort of the beginner starting out in this genre who's never played another one. Cryptic Killers is one of my favorite consistently good series. I've picked here Murder at the Movie Theater, which is a beginner case. The Think Fun Cold Case line tends to be easy and short. These are two of my favorite from this series. The Unsolved Case Files has one I would recommend for beginners called Harmony Ashcroft. And then this is Jamie Banks, a second one that's also good. And then not shown here is another series that I'm a big fan of called The Hidden Games cases, and you can find those on Amazon. I think any of the Hidden Games series would be good. Maybe start with New Haven. If you're already very experienced in this genre and feel like these cases are too easy for you, I have a set here of much harder cases. Cryptic Killers is one of my favorite series, and they've got a whole bunch of cases that are rated at medium to high difficulty. The hardest ones, in my opinion, that are the most engaging are Murder at Merivale Manor and Murder in Market Hill. So I don't think you can go wrong with those, but expect something serious. Those are cold case games. Another cold case series is by Adventure. They tend to be longer, more involved, more serious. This is still late, but I think any of the adventure games are good. And there's one that's been relicensed by an American company for cheap called Death in Antarctica by Murder Mystery Party. You can get that on Amazon for cheap. Another example of sort of a more serious, larger cold case game is Missing in the Caribbean. And then if you want a non-cold case game, here we have a card-based game called Guilty Monaco 1955. A rather long, rather intense mystery game to solve when you're ready to up your game to a next level. If you're more interested in humor and charm and family-friendly games, I've got two puzzle-centric games to recommend for you. One is The Curious Elevator of Mr. Hanks. This is sort of a deluxe experience with some very charming stuff. And the other one is The Morrison Game Factory, which is a puzzle game, but with a real touching, funny, humorous, charming story behind it. Another subgenre that's very dear to my heart is the play-by-mail mystery game. Some of us love the idea of being forced to very slowly tackle a case. And both of the games in front of me involve waiting a week between rounds, between turns. What I have here is a stack of letters from Dear Holmes. Each case is 4 letters or so. It's sort of a case sent to Sherlock Holmes that's been passed along to you. And it basically unfolds each case over the course of 3 or 4 letters, and then the final letter explains the solution. It's not a game per se. There are no actions. You don't submit turns. You just read each letter you get once a week and try to understand and figure out the mystery before Sherlock Holmes does. The second game I have here is actually a series of 3 games by a company called Murders by Mail. And unfortunately, they don't seem to be taking new orders right now, but this is a really quite a special experience. It's basically like Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, but you submit moves through a website each week, and then you get a letter in the mail telling you the results of your inquiries. It is a proper game. It is a special experience, but it doesn't look like you can get it yet. I hope that they will have these back in stock soon. Both of these would make great gifts for someone you know who enjoys reading and wants an experience that's drawn out over the course of a month or year. Dear Holmes is perfect for someone who's not really a gamer, but likes the idea of a mystery story being told in pieces. I've got a catch-all category here for those of you looking for something new and different and novel. First, we've got the Echo series, a small box series where the mystery is told in the form of audio clips that you listen to, and you try to rearrange, put the clues back in the order and figure out a case. Then we've got Perspectives, which is a game where big oversized cards are divided up among a group, must be played 2 or more, and you sort of communicate what's on your card to the other players. You share information and try to figure out the entire mystery without sharing your cards explicitly, just by saying what's on them. Micro Macro, which is a whole series where you've got a big giant 6x4 or so, 4x3 map of tiny little stuff going on everywhere. And each case is a couple cards, and you have to find things and figure out how they go together and what's going on. A unique game, but quite a clever and special experience. Then we have Bureau of Investigation, which is a sort of mishmash experimental game set in a Cthulhu supernatural world. Like Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, lots of reading, but a bunch of odd, different kinds of cases in here, more suited for someone who's willing to try some experimental detective work in a Cthulhu horror world. And then I have the Sherlock Files here, which is solving a mystery but must be played with 2 or more people, and basically similar to Perspectives, each person has a subset of cards and has to figure out which ones will help the group solve a mystery while which ones they throw out so the rest of the group will never get a chance to see. It's a unique twist. Some of these games may fail for you. Some work. Not shown here are two other games I'd like to recommend for your consideration. One is called Witness, which is very similar to the Perspectives vibe in that different players hear different things, read different things, and then share that information in some odd ways. Witness just released some new games, smaller games, that may be worth checking out. And the other one is a big box with expansions called Detective City of Angels, with a map, and it's a little bit like Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, where you read things and meet people. But Detective City of Angels has a twist, which is that it's designed for competitive play with one person playing the chisel who behind the scenes decides when characters are going to lie to players. And so players are trying to figure out when the information they're getting is true or not true and then beat the other detectives to the goal. So maybe there's something here that piques your interest. My next category is mystery games for players who like video games. Chronicles of Crime is a very special game with a bunch of expansions here where you try to solve cases, and it's driven by an app. And a lot of what you're doing is scanning cards and talking to people and seeing the responses in an app. It does feel a little bit like playing a video game, but a very good detective game. And the next one I have for you here is Cthulhu, which is a sort of pure analog point-and-click adventure game where you can interact with objects and get new items and try to solve a mystery along the way. Next up, games for those looking for a little bit of light adventure in a card game here. We have the Cartaventura series. I like Cartaventura Lhasa and Fate Flip Washed Assured. These are all games where there's a little bit of deduction, a little bit of mystery, but really the emphasis here is on having a narrative adventure. Our next category here are what I call stocking stuffers. These are games that there's a bunch of them in each series. We have Undo, which is a little bit more of an adventure, just a little bit of detective work, not too deep a puzzle. Exit, which is a whole series of well-respected puzzle-based games with a very thin narrative. Unlocked, more small card-based puzzle game, similar to Deckscape. And then Detective, a little mystery game with a couple special things for multiple players. My recommendation here are just look for these on sale cheap on Amazon. Don't worry too much. Maybe one grabs your attention because of the theme, but these are games to pick up when they go on sale. Little tiny little stocking stuffer gifts. You say you want something longer. I've got a collection of games here that are longer games that will take you multiple sessions to play. Here we have Detective Modern Crime board game. That's real police work over the course of 3 continuing cases, where sometimes you'll use an internet to look up records, but mostly an analog card-based experience. A little bit divisive, but if you're looking for a longer game to sink your teeth into. Then we have Adventure Game Series. This is two of my favorite here, the Dungeon and Monochrome Inc. These are more of a sort of point-and-click adventure-y thing where you're trying to uncover a mystery, but longer experiences. Curse of the Dark, a sort of deluxe escape room, very affordable, supernatural, monster-y theme, but a longer, mostly puzzle-based experience. Then we've got the Night Hunter, which is a cold case serial killer type game, but told in 3 acts. Not super hard, but definitely a longer experience than most of the other cold case games. And then a very long game from a series called Escape Tales. This one, Children of the Wormwoods. There's actually 3 boxes in the Escape Tales series. They're all long. You won't play them all in one session. This is the longest and most full, rich, adventure-y game one of the series with some supernatural elements. Not huge in the deduction mystery part, but there are mysteries to solve. Now, I am not a puzzle expert, but I have two games here for those of you who are, or know someone that is really at a different caliber of solving puzzles and is always looking for a challenge. This one here, Funny Pages, we played one of them and it stumped me. So it's a whole collection of sort of cartoons, but very difficult puzzles. And a game I haven't yet played, but I have on very good recommendation, is a beautiful and difficult puzzle game with a little bit of narrative there, Threads of Fate. For those getting gifts for people craving a challenge. Now, what if you're not really craving a super difficult challenge? You want something for the whole family to play, young kids, a little experience of a game. I'd like to recommend, in general, not the specific advent calendar, but the general category of advent calendars, and Exit makes some of the best ones. There's a new one that comes out every year. It's a big box with a little tiny compartment for each day of the month in December, and they're small snack-like little puzzles that you do one per day. It's a fun activity for a family. And they also make a series of jigsaw puzzle games, which again are not super taxing in terms of deduction and puzzle. You just assemble a jigsaw puzzle, the whole family can do it, and then in the process of doing that, you solve a little mystery. Advent calendars, jigsaw puzzle mysteries, good for the family that wants to play together who aren't really into hardcore mystery games. For those of you looking for a more deluxe, atmospheric, thematic experience and are willing to spend a little more, I have a group here of sort of deluxe escape room games. Here is Blair Witch Season 2, a whole set of 6 continuing cases. There's also a Season 1, another 6 cases. So if you're looking for a real experience to play over the course of a couple months, you could pick that up. Hunt a Killer games tend to have lots of little props in them. Here I have Root of All Evil, a deep, very deluxe, scary game. Good to play over Halloween, perhaps. And another game not shown, which is a favorite of mine, called The Messenger. Both are very serious, memorable experience games. And then the game I want to recommend is actually Box 1. It is a very odd, unusual game, best not to know too much about it, and makes a great gift. I only have Box 2 here in front of me. I've heard Box 2 is not as good as Box 1. So Box 1 is the one I'm recommending. Give it to someone. Don't tell them what they're in for, what it is. Don't even tell them that it's a mystery escape room game. Just tell them it's an interesting game and let them discover it as they play it. And then another favorite of mine in terms of creating memorable experiences is Witchery Spell. And that's another good game to play over Halloween and creates a real experience. All of these games are better to play with a group rather than solo, just because of the nature of the experience. It's fun to share it with someone else. Here's a group of games for people who aren't really looking for mystery story games, but more deductive board games. Here we have The Initiative, which is told over a series of games where you are playing a board game, but you're also trying to solve a mystery. You play through the whole game, series of games, and then it will end. You will be done with it. Then we have Rear Window, which is a very clever... Initiative is cooperative. Rear Window is mostly cooperative. It's limited communication. One person is trying to convey information about who the murderer is to other players on a board. It's very clever. You can watch our playthrough and review of this. And then the last here is Deception, which is a little bit of a mishmash of social deduction. One person is the murderer and another person is the witness, answering questions while the rest of the group tries to figure out who did what where. All unusual, interesting games that scratch that itch of trying to solve a mystery, even if they're not, strictly speaking, mystery games. Now, maybe you've got a large group and you don't want a hardcore story-based mystery game, but you want to feel like you're figuring things out and solving a case. I've got a couple games here that are some of my favorites. Crack the Case, Dark Stories is now sold. All of these games have the same flavor, and they're sold on Amazon and other places under different names. There's one called Mystery Detective. Crack the Case is an old game, but you can pick up copies used on eBay. These are all games where there's a card that tells you what's happened, and then the group, which can sit around the entire living room and just shout out questions, just asks yes or no questions to try to solve the mystery of what happened. It's a game that needs no rules to explain. Everyone can sit around during a party wherever they want, just relaxing. It plays great with all ages. There are no turns, nothing to do. It's one of my favorite activities to do with a larger group. And then Concept I've sort of stuck onto this list because it is one of my favorite games. And it is like an activity. One person gets a card that tells them what concept they're trying to convey, and they try to illustrate it by placing pawns on various little pictures. And people can just shout out and guess and try to figure out what they could be talking about. It's a little bit like charades, but without acting. It's a stretch to call it a mystery detective game, but sometimes it does feel like you're using that same part of your brain to deduce what the concept is that the person is trying to communicate. Now, there's a whole genre of murder mystery dinner party games. This is when you have people over for a dinner, everyone is assigned a role with some secret information, and everyone just talks and acts out their role during dinner while trying to figure out who did it. Now, I've played a bunch of these. I've just picked my favorite series of all the ones I've played. That's a series called Culinario Mortale. I just like the structure of it. And this isn't actually the one I'd recommend. The one I would recommend is called Shadow over Weston Grove Manor. But they all have a format that I like where people get certain information ahead of time, and then as the multiple acts go on, they read their little special cards that tell them what new information they're supposed to share, and everyone can be involved, including the host, in trying to solve the mystery. The next game series I'm going to recommend for horror fans, especially fans of sort of the serial killer genre, and that's the Deadbolt Mystery Society. You can buy these boxes individually. There are, I don't know, maybe 60 boxes that they've made so far, maybe more. You can buy them individually, you can buy them used on eBay frequently, or you can subscribe and get one sent to you per month. That's a very deluxe present for someone who likes getting these regularly. And they're rated at different difficulties with different themes, but frequently they deal with serial killers. You can watch reviews of several dozen boxes on this channel if you're looking for a specific one, but they're all fairly consistently good. So maybe if you know someone and there's a particular theme that you think they would be interested in, you can find something. Some with all the boxes they've made, there tends to be one made for any given theme. If you are craving a Cthulhu Supernatural mystery game, adventure game, I've got a couple recommendations here. The first one here is Mortem Medieval Detective The Shelter. Not the original big box. This is a standalone expansion, but a really special supernatural hybrid adventure mystery game. There really is a mystery to solve here. And then we have Mythos Tales, which I've snuck in because it is out of print, but you can find copies on eBay. It's basically a spin-off of Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, but all set in the world of H.P. Lovecraft. A whole bunch of mystery and experimental stuff in this box. And then I have here Cavendish, Time Stories Revolution Cavendish, which is a little bit more on the adventure game side, not so heavy in mystery, but a mystery does unfold, and it's a beautifully illustrated, engaging, longer adventure. Maybe you know someone who's interested in the medical mystery genre. There's a whole bunch of TV shows that are centered around this theme of figuring out medical mysteries. Have I got a game for you? Medical Mysteries New York City Emergency Room, and a follow-up coming soon set in Miami, is an extraordinary game, really very unique, very engaging, and feels very realistic. You are trying to solve a number of cases where people come in and present symptoms, and you have to figure out what's wrong with them and how to treat them. It would be a great game to play with a young person and an adult that could work together. Really special experience. I wish there were more games like it. Maybe you know someone who really loves spycraft, war stories. Then I've got two games to recommend for you. One is Vienna Connection, which is a spin-off of the Detective Modern Crime board game. This really is all about solving mysteries. And the other one is more of an adventure strategy game called War Story Occupied France, but a strong narrative element and some real mystery elements to it. These are both long games. You won't finish them in one session. Vienna Connection is one of my favorite experiences. But both of these extraordinary games, both of them I would recommend, if you can, play them with at least one other person. Maybe you've got an itch to play a sort of cozy family inheritance mystery game, then I'd recommend Death on the Vine from Hunt to Killer, a little standalone box, medium difficulty, but a very nice story, sort of classic cozy mystery. Maybe what you really want is to play the bad guy. Here we have Masters of Crime Vendetta, where you play a mafia enforcer trying to solve a mystery and take care of business. Very different feel from most of the mystery games we play. It could scratch that itch. If science fiction is your thing and you're looking for a sci-fi mystery game, you don't have too many choices, but here are two. The first one is a standalone box called Time Stories Revolution: The Hadal Project. This is more an adventure game, but there are some real mystery elements to it. It's beautifully illustrated. It has a fun time travel story. And the second box here is an expansion for Chronicles of Crime called 2400, which is a series of cyberpunk mysteries. Very well done, very serious mysteries, difficult ones to solve here. Both of those may scratch that sci-fi itch. So I focused in this list on games that are currently available at reasonable prices in print. But here's a set of games if you've got the historical collector who has everything, and you're looking for a very special, rare gift for someone that may be so a little historically inclined. I've got a couple here. First, we've got some expansions for Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective that are out of print, long deluxe experiences. Gumshoe, one of the biggest, most ambitious, most taxing mystery detective game, out of print, but you can find these on eBay occasionally. Then we've got a series of books that were pioneered by Dennis Wheatley in the 30s that are full of evidence and documents, sort of the precursor to the modern cold case dossier game. And then a game called Mug Book, which was inspired by Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective, released in the 80s and is ultra rare. Let's wrap up this holiday gift guide with a discussion of something you may not realize, which is that there are some amazing, very high quality, free print and play mystery games available. I've got a whole bunch here that are essentially expansions for Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective. Each one is a free print and play mystery game. You could play them on tablet or print them out as I have. I've got a whole bunch of videos talking about my favorite such cases and why they're such a great experience. Every bit as good as published cases. Then we've got Razorhurst by John Keane and a new follow-up game, a big, giant, really work of art based on a true crime that I played on the channel over several days and really couldn't recommend it more highly. And then we've got New York Noir, which used to be called High and Low. This is the game I've been working on for a couple years. You can download and play a few free print and play cases for that. You can also get free fan-made cases for Chronicles of Crime, Bureau of Investigation, Mythos Tales. Those all have a more or less active group. Sherlock Holmes Consulting Detective probably has the most active fan case base of people making cases. And the other part to say is that if you're interested in making your own case, consider this a gift to yourself. Write your own mystery case and share it. There's an active community writing Sherlock Holmes consulting detective cases. There's a free app for making your own chronicles of crime cases. There are guides on how to write your own high and low New York noir cases. That could open a whole new world for you. I can't think of a better gift to give yourself than to try your hand at writing your own mystery game. There you have it, a whirlwind tour of the mystery game genre and some recommendations for gifts for others or maybe for yourself. I hope you found something in here useful, and I hope I didn't steer you wrong anywhere, but definitely if you don't have any experience with this genre, find something here that catches your interest and give it a try, because for those of us who like these mystery games, there's nothing quite like it. All right, I'll see you on the next video. I'd love to hear if you have games that you think I missed recommending, especially games that would make good gifts. Let me know if you've played any of these, if any of these are particularly creating fond memories for you. And I'll see you on the next video.